Hey, what's up guys and gals? I know it's been a hot minute since I've done an Iceberg video, but luckily I recently had some free time, so I decided to cover one of my favorite arcade games of all time, and that's Metal Slug. And I'm sure many of you viewers have played this awesome game, and today I'm going to bring in my brother Piester to kind of help me with this Iceberg. Would you like to introduce yourself today?
Yeah, sure, man. I got you. So, originally Metal Slug for me was one of the greatest games I've ever played. The first time I played it was at a laundromat, and it was like the coolest thing ever. So, with further ado, let's get on with it.
And today's Iceberg was created by Neon Kinomi, and let's start at the surface and make our way down like the usual. SNK are the developers behind Metal Slug, King of Fighters, Fatal Fury, and as well as many other great arcade games. The Neo Geo MFS, or best known as the Multi-Video System, was the SNK's arcade machine, where many of their classic titles were used on these machines, and now there are portable versions of this machine which are available to purchase on Amazon or whatever you use. Also, for the AES, this would be one of the first home release versions of SNK in which you're allowed or able to play many of their games in the arcade scene, but in the comfort of your home. But here's a funny fact that I did pull while researching the AES, and that is this system was only able to rent in hotels, bars, and restaurants, but then many fans were willing to pay for its initial price of $650, which is pretty crazy. And if you had the chance of getting one as your kid during this time, you're one lucky dude or gal. And that's about it for the Neo Geo MFS and AES. The SV001, or its well-known name, Metal Slug, funny enough, is one of the most iconic vehicles that it makes its appearance for every single Metal Slug games, and even those really bad gacha games too, so it's pretty iconic for what it is. With the announcement of Terry Bogard in Smash Brothers, there were many songs in the King of Fighters, and as well as there was an awesome surprise, which out of nowhere they had included Metal Slug music in Smash, but the sad thing, but sort of bittersweet, is that Terry Bogard's stage, there is an appearance of Ralph Jones and Clark, so that's probably going to be the closest thing we're going to get into Metal Slug characters in Smash Brothers, but who knows. The Nintendo Direct is coming pretty soon, so maybe we might get lucky in the future. We can only hope.
Alright, let's get to the second layer. So, the regular army is the main army that you, the player, will be a part of throughout the whole Metal Slug series. They're at war with the rebel army, in which we will discuss them in this Iceberg. But the regular army will also have other enemies such as aliens and zombies. It's pretty wild, to be honest. Also, sometimes they get assisted by the super devil, which is unknown entirely, that only helps the regular army only in dire situations. The Mars people, as the name suggests, they're a group of aliens from Mars, but they have the goal of conquering Earth. And by Metal Slug 2, General Moderate from the rebel army had made a pact with the Mars people, and spoilers, they do take over the planet. But then, the Mars people betray him, and it's up to you, the regular army, to clean up the mess like usual. Okay, so we got Alan O'Neill. This guy's one of the main soldiers in the rebel army, but he is best known as the Immoral Devil Sergeant, even though in every game, he almost dies and somehow comes back to life with his famous last words, "See you in hell." Also that one time he got eaten by a giant orca whale. Wow, ain't that something, dude? So for this entry, we got a couple of Japanese names. I probably won't be able to pronounce them right, but I'll give it a shot. Rumi Akawa, she is one of the main support characters in Metal Slug, but she does have some lore history in which I will read from the Metal Slug Wikipedia. It states that Rumi joined the regular army is because of her mother's diagnosed with heart condition, as well as her older sister Makoto, who was physically weak, so that both of them can use the regular army medical facility for treatment. During her training, she was accidentally shipped into the front lines after the paperwork mistake, and despite the fact that her training was not yet completed, she managed to escape fighting without capture. After the first conflict with the rebellion, Rumi is given a chance to resign from her position and carry out the rest of her life as a civilian. She declines the offer and transfers into the regular army intelligence division. As a supply sergeant, she packs the incredible ammo of cargo into her backpack and tries to deliver them to the friendly forces out in the battlefield in hope to help them win. However, she has a horrible sense of direction, often gets lost. This results in her appearing out of nowhere and vanishing without a trace, gaining her nickname, the Wandering Ghost, by other soldiers. Also, she has a sister named Makoto, who is just like her too. Right, the next one is Rebel Army. The Rebel Army is the main group that are against the regular army, that are led by the General Moderate. that started the war against the regular army in 2026. But there is something interesting about the history on the rebel army and how it became it is. In the Central Street Park bombing in 2023 changed it all, when it was discovered that among the casualties was the wife and daughter of the moderate, and the moderate had found out that the regular army could have prevented the bombing, but did not, due to the level of corruption in the government and military. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. POWs. These are prisoners of war in the Metal Slug series, and there are many of them with variety names and designs. And my personal favorite are Uton, which is a chimp that uses the Mac 11 pistol. That's pretty funny. That helps you, which is beyond funny, as well, Pew Pew, which he's part of the Mars people, but he's only a Metal Slug 6, so... Nose Factory. The Nose Factory is a Japanese game company that is responsible for the soundtracks of Metal Slug 3, and the co-developers of Metal Slug 4 and 5. Independence Day reference. The rug name battle in Metal Slug 2 is the big reference to Independence Day, like the one scene where the aliens blow up the White House. As you can see now, they are very similar. Slug vehicles and mounts. There are many vehicles and different types of mounts that appear in the game that are used by the regular army. Branching paths. In many of these games there are branching paths that the player can take that gives bonus points to vehicles and weapons that are hidden in said levels. SNK vs Capcom Metal Slug cameos. The Mars people do make a cameo as a secret playable character in SNK vs Capcom Chaos. It's pretty funny seeing him in this fighting game. Also, Mark and Clark do make an appearance in King of Fighters as well. Slide dashing. Only in Metal Slug 5. This is an easier way to dodge bullets and projectiles. It's only featured in Metal Slug 5, which is a real shame due to how helpful it is. King of Fighters appears as mentioned earlier in this iceberg. There are many characters from Metal Slug that are featured in King of Fighters. Okay, so on to the last item on the second layer. So we got Metal Slug 6 was developed on Atomisware hardware. It was the first main game in the franchise not to be run on the SNK, Neo Geo, or NVS arcade hardware, but instead made in Atomiswave. So I gotta thank CRISPR for allowing me doing this iceberg. This is the first time I've ever done a video, so if you have any feedback from me, spin in the comments. So I'll just give it to CRISPR.
Ex-Aram developers formed Nausicaa Corporations. The company was formed in 1994 by a group of employees from Irem who were tired of the company's inactivity, so in 1996 the company was acquired by SNK. Hayakatori was one of the POWs that we had discussed earlier, but what makes him different is the fact that he can throw these Hadoukens at enemies, and if you manage to get him. Also, what's kind of funny too is that he's a secret boss for Metal Slug's second mission, so if you manage to defeat him, you get Iron Knuckles, plus he also makes an appearance as Marco Supers in Neo Geo Battle Coliseum, so he's been around for many of these Metal Slug games and cameos as well. White Baby Crisis. So again, let's get into Metal Slug lore, shall we? The White Baby Crisis is an incident that takes place in the year 2031 in Metal Slug 4. So we're pretty much almost there. But anywho, there was this fear of cyber terrorism that had put the world into a panic due to this virus named White Baby Crisis. This virus connects through the internet to override the military systems throughout the globe. And that's not even the most wild thing while reading up on this lore, is the fact that this group named Amadeus is formed slowly to annihilate the party that is responsible for this virus. So pretty wild name, and as well as a pretty wild group of people too. Shoryu is a well-known YouTuber that covers many types of lore histories on fighting games such as King of Fighters and as well as Metal Slug stories. So it's a very cool channel, and I highly recommend for you guys to watch his content because it's pretty amazing the kind of stuff he does for you guys. Combat School Instructors. This is a mode in which the Neo Geo CD, the Sega Saturn, and the PlayStation versions of Metal Slug 2, and Metal Slug X. The main instructor is named Margaret Meg Southwood, in which she has her own lore history, which is pretty sad, seeing that in the wiki it states that her husband divorced her after their son named Thomas reaches of age 5, and it gets real sad for her. But anywho, back to the topic at hand. This mode contained two different types of missions, which included Pinpoint Attack, in which the player needs to beat a single mission as quickly as you can, and the other mode is Survival Attack, in which you need to beat the entire game in one life, which seems totally possible and not hard as hell. Venusians. These are another type of alien race, just like the previously mentioned Martian people, except these people are a lot more similar to the Xenomorphs, and as you can tell, it's pretty sick. So many of these people of these kind of games are big fans of these horror alien movies, so that's pretty cool. Donald Morden backstory and design. For Morden, we mentioned this earlier, but he's the main leader for the rebels, and for his backstory, it revolves around that Central Park bombing we had discussed earlier, which led to the creation of the rebel army against the regular army due to their incompetence, and also to his design is based off of Saddam Hussein, Adolf Hitler, and Joseph Stalin. So, pretty evil dude. Yeah. Metal Slug mobile games. For this entry, the Metal Slug mobile games are in fact the Metal Slug Defense, Metal Slug Attack, and as well as the original 3 games were imported to the phones. Also, there's the Metal Slug Touch, which was a Japanese exclusive but was removed in 2012. Also, for the newest entry, there is a code name called Metal Slug Code J, which looks very promising and hopefully comes out soon because it's very similar to like the other games where it's actually like a shoot 'em up game, so it looks pretty cool. Clones. As the name suggests, these are clone versions of the Peregrine Falcon and Sparrow soldiers that are made by the Mars people, and they're also the final regular enemies of Metal Slug 3, so I guess you can say there is a there's an imposter among us. Metal Slug Advance. This is referring to the Game Boy Advance games, which include new characters, and it's a bit hard seeing that you only get 1 life per level, so you need to be on your toes consistently because this game is not a pushover whatsoever. Root Mars. He's the leader of the Martians and is behind the invasion in Metal Slug 2, and he's also the main villain in Part 3, so that's a bit neat. The timeline. Okay, for this entry, trying to explain the entirety of the timeline is going to be a bit hefty, but there are plenty of other YouTubers that go into more depth, so I'll put that in the description. And if you wish to know more of the story, I will put this image right now that'll showcase a bit of the timeline now. It isn't fully complete, but this is what we have so far, based off of this Wikipedia article I pulled from. Metal Slug 3D was planned to be released overseas. Metal Slug 3D, or Metal Slug 06, was the first in the series to go full 3D, and I will be speculating onto why this was planned to be released overseas due to the fact that most of the text is in English and the voices are dubbed too in English, but due to the mixed reviews in Japan, this may have prompted SNK not to feel confident enough to release it overseas. Due to this may be the main reason why we just have to keep on guessing on why this wasn't released overseas. Only a sole Metal Slug was going to be playable in Metal Slug 1. There are 2 types of slugs in this game, which is the SV001, and I believe the second boat, which you use in the final mission for Metal Slug 1. So this may be referring to maybe in the initial stages, only the Metal Slug SV001 was used, but again, the boat was included in Metal Slug 1, so there's that too. Phil, Jean, and Michiko Nakajima. Mikujo was an unused character who was going to be the second main character of Metal Slug and was originally supposed to take over Tarama's spot, so that's pretty well. And as for Phil Jean, the same thing applies to him, but he was supposed to replace Marco, funny enough. So imagine if these two were to take over Marco and Tarma, the whole Metal Slug series would have just been indifferent entirely, so that's pretty neat knowing that. The first and second Modern Wars. So I'm going to do my best to summarize these 2 wars for you fine viewers, so please bear with me. Okay, for the first war, General Morden starts his plan to seize control of the world, and most of the major cities fall under his command, so this leads a small group of rebels that are from one of these cities to try to build more strength and kind of try to stop Morden. However, the Resistance has a secret factory which they built, but it's shattered by Morden's army, in which the slug vehicles are being made by these resistant people. This then leads to the 2 main characters from the Resistance, Marco and Tarma, to pinpoint Morden's location and either A, recover these vehicles or destroy them, which is the first Modern War plot, or at least the start of it, so I reckon you play the game to find out more and details about how this kind of ends. But anywho, for the second Modern War, it takes place right after, obviously, the first war, so since, spoilers, Morden's army have been completely wiped out, there are still many people who are still sympathetic to his cause, in which there are still small groups left to try to fight back with the regular army, aka the first set of rebels from the first war. But anywho, those small units by Morden are becoming more organized and starting to plan a large-scale invasion just like last time. But it's unclear on how these small units are planning all of this, and again, Morden gets captured in the first war but seemingly escapes, which leads him to contacting those Martian people and other allies to help him take over just like last time. This is where the regular army sends in the Falcon Squad, Marco and Tarma, and other soldiers to stop Morden plans yet again. And that about summarizes these 2 Modern Wars without giving too much away. And again, please play these games because they're worth your time and it's very accessible through either emulation, PlayStation 4, PSP, DS, or whatever you prefer. Definitely check them out. So now we're in the 4th layer, and starting off with the first entry, it's Ikari Warriors team. So this one's pretty cool, seeing that I had played this game once on my Switch, and now that I'm doing this Iceberg, some of these team members do look very familiar to the Metal Slug members, and yep, you've guessed it, it's Ralph, Clark, Leona. They do make an appearance, but in the English release, their names are changed, and Clark is named Paul, and then Marco's named Vince. which is a bit weird choice, but whatever. Demon Front. So Demon Front is a bit a ripoff from the Metal Slug series, but it shares a lot of designs and other things, so that's about it, but it's pretty cool. I mean, pretty much just a planned ripoff, but if you have time or you can have the MAME emulator run on your computer, definitely check it because it's pretty fun and the artwork is pretty good too for what it is. Madoka Akawa. So for Madoka, she's just like her sister Rumi, so they shared the same type of support role, and yeah, that's about it. Metal Slug Wars. This is another interesting take by the SNK boys and gals, in which Metal Slug was made by a type of RTS type of game for the iPhone, but unfortunately has been playable since of March of 2013, so there's that. Real shame, because I would have loved to play this game myself personally. Ptolemaic Army. This is another army in the Metal Slug, but these guys are the main bad guys for Metal Slug 5, but just like the Rebel Army discussed earlier, their motives are just like those guys who want to take over the world, but they obey only one force, and that is their Dark Lord Avatar of Evil, in which these grunts also have magical abilities, which makes these guys not even pushovers, so the Rebel armies really don't have anything against these guys because they ain't fucking around. Pachinko slots. Just like Konami, SNK had the same idea to make more money from their games and decided to put their games onto Pachinko slots, in which offer their own stories and allow you to pick which characters you like to go with. And there's a video on YouTube that showcases these cutscenes if you want to watch it for yourself, so we're probably never going to see this in the West, and these Pachinko machines are a bit rare side, so good luck trying to find one out in the wild, and you're probably going to have to pay a pretty penny if you want to experience it for yourself, so yeah, it's a real unfortunate. Another story / mission. So this is a mode offered only in the PlayStation port of Metal Slug, in which there are mini games that add to this part of this game in Japan, but you do get 3 extra missions, which makes the game even more awesome. It's a bit cool. I mean, more missions and whatnot, but yeah, we'll take it. Dolphin Blue. This is another game that shares a lot of things with Metal Slug, except it's taking place mostly in underwater, but then again there are a couple missions in the Metal Slug games that take place also in underwater, so it is another bit of a ripoff, but this game does look pretty fun on its own too. Metal Slug first and second missions. These are the Metal Slug games that were made for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, in which they offer their own story and lore, which is pretty similar to the other games, but with a few different name changes, but it's basically like the same thing like the other 2 games, but just for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. The Memphis Bomb Princess. This is referring to an achievement in Metal Slug XX, in which you have to kill 10 enemy soldiers with a grenade as Airy. Marco created the MS Alice. Alright, more lore history time, let's do it. So Alice was a new character introduced in Metal Slug Attack, and she's like this AI that was supposed to be a virus made by some unknown nation, but then Marco stole this virus and Alice took kindly to him and started to develop a self-awareness. And according to the wiki I'm reading from, many days of hard work, Marco managed to customize one of his SV vehicles that allowed Alice to meet Marco as a hologram. So that's nice, I guess. Mono Eye UFO Origin. This is an artifact that was created to serve as the beacon for the Martian people, and it's guarded by the Mono Eyes, but it has this green energy that turns people into zombies, so alien zombies, demon lords, all is normal in the Metal Slug lore universe. Daydream Data Notes. Daydream by Hayao Miyazaki was a book by him which the game designers of Metal Slug, Kazuma Kujo, said it was an inspiration during the development of Metal Slug, so that's pretty cool. The fact that Hayao Miyazaki kind of has an inspiration for many of these kind of video games, movies, and whatnot. It's pretty cool seeing how wild his works go to really inspire people. Zeki Sage. This is a very cool artist who mostly focuses on the Metal Slug artwork, and definitely give them love and follow their blog on gaming art, and as well as their YouTube channel. I really think this art, and it's pretty awesome what they can do. In Rug Name. This is the name of the Martian's main mothership, and that's about it, so this one's going to be a bit short on the side. Amethyst Syndicate. Alright, so these are the main armies that you go against in Metal Slug 4 that uses highly advanced technology that are a part with the Rebel Army, so basically the same thing as Rebel Army, just, more highly advanced and less, magical like the previously mentioned other army we talked about. The Japanese Army. So the Japanese Army is known as, of course, the Japanese official army, and they're a major faction during the Second Modern War. And before the beginning of the Second Modern War, the events of Metal Slug 2, the Rebel Army had offered their support to these guys, but the regular army had completely destroyed them due to the fact that the Japanese army had outdated weapons, and as such had eventually surrendered to their nation with the Rebel Army. So, yeah, it seems like the Japanese army doesn't really have good tactics in war, kind of like how in World War II. But Tank Police. This enemy movie is the coolest stuff that I've seen, and their artwork and some of the designs of the vehicles share a resemblance to these Metal Slug vehicles, such as the SV001. and of things in that nature. So I would recommend highly watching this movie. It's only about maybe 50 minutes long, and it's on YouTube, so definitely check it out. And it has a pretty cool, catchy theme song too. Uton, he's the best thing about Metal Slug and the best POW that you can save, since what is the coolest thing I've ever seen? The fact that it's literally a monkey with a Mag-10 that's brought to wreck some stuff. Yeah. Satiko Zizaki. This lady has a pretty sad story, seeing that she's a random NPC in the background of Metal Slug, and you see her praying to her soon-to-be husband who was killed during the war, and it seems that she wants the aliens to resurrect her loved one. So it's a bit tragic for this random NPC. Now we're in the 5th layer. In the first entry is the Jetpack Joyride collaboration. And I didn't think that was a thing, but apparently Jetpack Joyride did do a collab with Metal Slug with Marco, Eri, and Tamra, and Fio, and many different vehicles that were put in the game for $2.99 for each skin, so cool. Scrap Mecha Spinoffs. So I'm a bit stumped on this one, and I really dislike doing this sort of thing, but honest to God, I cannot find any information on this entry, but it may be referring to the numerous canceled mobile games that did not get through the initial development stages, but so sorry about that. If you happen to know more about this Mecha spinoff, I would gladly, heart your comment and all that good stuff for you. UFOs in Metal Slug 1. There does appear a UFO in Metal Slug 1, but it's so fast, and it's only in Mission 3 when Alan is killed, and the UFO will randomly appear in the background, so it shows that the Martians are slowly creeping their way onto this series, so it's a pretty nice touch, seeing that they're going to be a big part of Metal Slug 2 also. World War II was a Cold War tech theory. I'll be using a direct quote from the creator of this iceberg to answer this question, so this is a personal theory of mine regarding the lack of any world building prior to Morden's birth, and the reason why World War II Korean War is based aesthetically is used so much throughout the series, and I think World War II was a hot, cold ordeal where the lack of resources left a lot leftovers used for super weapons and technologies that became integrated into society. So that's a pretty cool theory, I would have to say, that the creator of this iceberg did mention, and I'm glad they put it out for us to read, so thank you. Unused sprites. This is referring to many sprites that were made, which obviously listed here were unused, but the coolest one I saw was the Stone Turtle, which was supposed to be the mid-boss for the Metal Slug 5, but was never used because the game was a bit of in a rush for its development. But you can get this character in Metal Slug Defense and Attack. Also from the same game, there was another final boss named Platomelios, pretty sure I pronounced it wrong, but it's fine, who wasn't used for the very same reason, but he would have appeared before summoning the Avatar of Evil, which we will talk about soon enough in this iceberg. Redrawn backgrounds in Metal Slug 1. I'll be reading a direct interview with the Metal Slug team in which they answered the redrawn backgrounds in Metal Slug 1, so it states the following. Are there any Metal Slug games designs that had to be scrapped? And they respond, in order to create and release a game, tons of ideas and designs are born and destroyed. Actually, in the first title, there was a stage which we had to redraw almost half of the background graphics because it ended up not matching up our direction as development progressed. So, that pretty much confirms it with one of these developers. Aerodule. Well, for Aerodules is created by Nausicaa, who would eventually create the Metal Slug series, but there really isn't a connection with Aerodule and Metal Slug except for an Easter egg from a common soldier in Gun Force 2, and that's about it, so yeah, that's cool. Division 6 is based off a Hero's unit. For Division 6, which is the Japanese army in Metal Slug, it kind of resembles Hero's unit uniform, sorta. I mean, they do look the same, I guess, but maybe you guys can see it, but I'll put a picture of it now here. So you guys can let me know in the comments below. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 SNK glitch. One of the best Call of Duty games that I personally enjoyed had this wild ass glitch at the time where you can get free SNK games, and one of them was Metal Slug 3 and Metal Slug XX. So if you happen to be one of the lucky players, you would be able to play these games for free. And yes, it was a bit of a demo test, but still, it was pretty cool seeing that you can unlock a shooter game within a shooter game. So another reason why Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, in my opinion, is probably one of the best things in this franchise. And when it eventually does get fucking announced in E3 this year of a remake, I'm definitely going to buy it. So hopefully they stick with it and get rid of this battle pass. But anywho, let's keep going on with this iceberg. Now we're in the 6th layer. Ptolemy summoned the Avatar of Evil. So as stated in the previous entry in the unused sprite section, we mentioned that Ptolemy, for summoning the Avatar of Evil, was by his cult and by his army, but unfortunately due to Metal Slug 5 being rushed, he was not included, but it is confirmed that he did summon the Avatar of Evil. It's just kind of a shame he wasn't included, because this sprite work, as we showed earlier, is pretty cool. So, it's a bit shame we didn't get this to happen. Amusement Machine Show 1995 Test Location Demo. This is referring to the annual Japanese arcade show, but in the article of Sega Retro, it states that only arcade demos that were presented were Cyber Troopers, The Final Arc, Indy 500, and Sky Target. But there are no mentions of any sort of Metal Slug demo or anything like that, but if there is something out there, please leave a comment below and I'll gladly respond and give you a heart. And I'm pretty curious about this entry because there wasn't any mention of this test location demo, so I like to keep a eye out there for it. Mars people and the H.G. Wells ufology connection. I can see a connection between the Mars people and the H.G. Wells novel of the War of the Worlds due to some of the similarities that some of these Martians share with these cover arts, and how some of these aliens are described in the novel, such as the Martians in H.G. Wells' book, in which they are from Mars, developing technology to find a new home and conquer the world, just like the ones in Metal Slug. So it's a bit wild, but I like the idea of it, and it's really, really neat. What happened to Trevor and Nadia after Metal Slug 4? Trevor and Nadia in the end of Metal Slug 4, after surviving the explosion of facility that they were trying to escape from, there is an ending in which you can see these two characters severely injured in a hospital bed. We can only assume that they may have retired after these injuries since they have not made an appearance in the mainline games as of now. However, Nadia does make an appearance in Metal Slug Defense, and so does Trevor too, and it's not really certain why they haven't made an appearance besides these spin-off games, and I'm not completely sure if Metal Slug Attack is considered canon or not, so maybe it's either they either retired or simply moved on to the Metal Slug Attack franchise for their next mission, and that's probably what happened to Trevor and Nadia after Metal Slug 4, so maybe they might come back in that new reboot of that Metal Slug game that we talked about earlier for the mobiles, but who knows? We just have to wait and find out. Now we are on to the final layer, so let's kick it off. Terrifying in 9/11 was a cancelled Game Boy port of Metal Slug 1. Okay, so I remember seeing this from Joel from Vinesoft streaming this in his Game Boy bootleg video, and it was like one of the most random things I've ever seen being made as a bootleg copy of Metal Slug 1. But yeah, this game actually contains footage from 9/11 and it's on the Game Boy. But from what I read on this thread by the creator of this iceberg, the Neon Konami states, the creator of the iceberg, that this game was used as an asset and gameplay on the Neo Geo version of Metal Slug, so it was kind of just scaled down for the system. So yeah, that happened. That's a bit disturbing. Where is Metal Slug 8? There has not been an official announcement by SNK of a possible Metal Slug 8. However, in February of last year, there is a promo video of a fan-made game that goes by that same name. But other than that, I don't think we'll ever get anything new, with the exception of that mobile game that I keep talking about, that it's coming out in the future. So we can only wait and see. But until then, my name is Crisper, and I'm thankful for the creator of this iceberg, and as well as my brother for making this video possible. So keep on the lookout for our videos. And until next time, just make sure to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye now.